So most of what is in the new food pyramid is fairly common sense, that we want to eat whole foods, or as I've always told patients, food in its most natural form is going to be healthiest for us. So we'll use the example of chicken nuggets. I always tell parents, what you buy at McDonald's or Chick-fil-A, while they may taste delicious, they're not very good for us. They're very processed and they have a lot of breading and other stuff on them. If we were to go instead to Walmart or Brookshire's or Superone and buy chicken, a whole chicken, and cook it up, is going to be a lot healthier for us. If we don't do that, if we get chicken tenderloins or chicken breasts even, and then we can chop it at home and cook it up, it's going to be way healthier than those processed things. The biggest changes, I think, on the food pyramid that I've seen is that it is pushing more of the full-fat dairy than what we had there previously. And there's a couple of thoughts behind that. You know, we used to say, oh, some of this dairy, the fat is way too much, we don't need all that. This has kind of flipped that back around, and I think, I don't know all of the rationale behind it, but we do know that a lot of the lower fat products sometimes add in more sugar. And sugar has been a big problem with Americans' diets for a long time. And so by going with the full fat, you should fill up faster. Your sense of feeling full should last longer, and then we're not getting the added sugars that we don't need in there. And there's still common sense in that of limiting how much we have. So something may be good for us in a moderate portion, but if we have a ton of it, it can be bad. So keeping that in limitation, but also still consuming lots of fresh fruits and vegetables. We always say we want a rainbow of colors in our fruits and vegetables, and we want 5 servings a day, at least, between fruits and vegetables to get all the vitamins and nutrients that we need from our food. The other big thing is they were pushing more protein with this, and that's something we've seen a lot of people do with different diet trends that we've looked at over the last 20, 30 years, that protein is a big push to help increase our muscle strength, not lose muscle mass, have enough energy to keep us going. With carbohydrates that our body turns into sugars, we tend to get a lot of energy and then we crash, right? And fat and protein give us a more steady energy for a longer period of time without that peak and then that crash afterwards too. So we think about milk. So when we think of dairy, we think yogurt, milk, and cheese. And we have always said in pediatrics, we usually want 2 to 3 servings of dairy a day at least. I think this does increase that a little bit more. And that push is more the full fat. Now this is not talking full fat chocolate milk or full fat strawberry milk, right? Because again, those are going to have a lot of that sugar that we want to cut out. But trying to incorporate that into our diet. Same thing with yogurts. The Go-Gurts that are out there taste great, but look at the sugar content. Most of them have a lot of sugar content. I don't mean to pick on a specific brand, but looking at the different brands that you're buying, what is that sugar content when you buy it? So again, food in its most natural form is better. I was having this conversation with a colleague this morning because I had brought in plain yogurt for breakfast, and I'd mixed in some blueberries and some vanilla extract just to help add a little bit of flavor without adding sugar into it. And it's amazing what doing things like that can help with flavoring things without putting a ton of sugar in. But a lot of times when it's bought already flavored, there's a lot of sugar already added in. So, yeah.
What would you say are some of the important changes from the food pyramid that parents should be mostly aware about?
So one of the other things it did drop the whole grain portions down, I believe, to 2 to 3 servings a day. And so what's not on there are non-whole grain things. So when we think about our bleached flour, our processed carbohydrates, that's not on there at all. So most of us, when we're eating, our grains are actually already bleached and processed. And I know I'm guilty of this too, of having those from time to time. But looking at a regular pasta in the grocery aisle versus a whole grain pasta, you're going to see that protein count is a lot higher in the whole grain pasta. So still limiting those portions, but trying to switch more to whole grains as best we can. It will take time. It's going to take time for both the prices to change, I think. When something has been considered a luxury item and then we're not producing a lot of it, it's going to be more expensive. As we see everybody try to buy it. We may sell out of it shortly, and then everybody will start mass producing it, and we'll see those prices change. We've seen that already with some of the food dyes coming out of foods, that some companies have opted in to do that before they had to do that for regulation. But I think we'll see that shift happen over the next couple of years, that we'll see that become more mainstream. We'll have a whole lot less of the bleached pastas and flours and stuff, and more of the whole grain options out there. There's other options that we can do too. I was talking with a parent yesterday about, when you look in the pasta aisle, you can see sometimes a lentil-based pasta. Well, lentils are part of those grains. I'm sorry, not the grains, but they're part of the vegetables, right? So when we think about looking at what pasta we're going to buy, if your child loves pasta, or your family loves pasta, can you substitute in a lentil pasta instead, so that we're getting our fruits and vegetable counts in when we're eating what feels like a pasta, or making a substitute for, I don't know if you're familiar with spaghetti squash, but it's a yellow squash. You can cut it in half, you can boil it, you can microwave it, you can bake it. But when you pull it apart, it looks like strands of spaghetti. And so you can do that with a tomato sauce and have no whole grains in there, and just be getting your vegetables in with that. So there's ways to substitute things in. I think it's just going to take a mindset change for most Americans to start doing that.
So I know I mentioned this earlier before we started.
Yeah.
Just kind of, with vegetables and fruits and fresh produce, the cost right now is a little bit expensive when it comes to that. And then you have your protein costs even more. So what would you recommend especially for kids that, won't really necessarily eat that, but it's cheaper to buy, $2 chicken nugget from McDonald's?
The $2 chicken nuggets are going to be cheaper than the healthy version of chicken nuggets in the grocery store. But I think if you were to look pound for pound, the whole chicken is going to be a lot cheaper, or even a chicken tenderloin that you cut up and bake in your oven is going to be a whole lot healthier, and that's still going to be cheaper pound for pound than the chicken nuggets that you get at McDonald's. When you look at, or any fast food place, when you look at the price of how much the actual meat you're getting versus meat in the store. There are ways. I know fruits and vegetables can be very expensive. I always look at the weekly ads myself of going, okay, what's on sale this week, and where to buy things. A great resource is our frozen fruits and vegetables, especially things that are flash frozen. That means they were picked and frozen usually within a day. And so sometimes those actually taste better than the fresh produce in the store was picked 2 weeks ago that just made it to our shelf today. So opting for some of those things can be a lot cheaper, especially when things are in off season. I always like to keep a bag of frozen peppers and onions in my freezer at home that I can quickly make with some chicken and throw it in my air fryer for chicken fajitas, right? So there's quick options to do things like that. But it's easier to have that on hand as well, without having to go grocery shopping every few days for more produce too. But we can also, if you have any space, even a patio or somewhere that you can plant just a few vegetables can be great. There's lots of things online about planting a vertical wall. I haven't always lived in East Texas, and so I've lived in some bigger cities where a lot of people lived in apartments, but you could still get a vertical wall to plant herbs and plant a few other different vegetables too that were great and easy to have. The biggest thing that I've had in East Texas is squirrels trying to get into my produce, so yeah, got to be careful about that. So yeah, there's kind of two schools of thought on this. One is hide it in some way. So sometimes I'll talk with parents about doing smoothies, and I usually will say that for our children that are either very obstinate or maybe have some other medical conditions going on that are going to make them super picky eaters. And so I say, how can we hide some of the nutrition into something that they'll already eat? So there are ways to do that. For most children though, I say, keep introducing it, introduce it in different ways. One of the examples that I love to give is, as a child growing up, my mom would always steam broccoli with a little bit of white vinegar, and I really didn't like it. As an adult, I watched my sister take the same broccoli, put balsamic vinegar on it, sprinkle a little goat cheese and a few pine nuts, and roast it in the oven. And I said, this is delicious. It's still broccoli, it still has vinegar on it, but it's made a little bit different, and I love the taste of that. And so try those same foods prepared different ways. Include the children in picking the fruits and vegetables, and as well as in preparing the food in age-appropriate manners. Obviously, we're not going to give a 3-year-old a knife to cut up a vegetable, right? But involving them in prepping foods and even picking the foods makes them more likely to want to try it. It does take about 3 to 4 weeks for taste buds to change. So if we're trying to do big diet changes, don't be surprised that there's going to be some pushback, but over time that can happen. We do say with most children it takes about 25 tries of a new food before we start to like it. Unfortunately, that doesn't work with unhealthy food. Kids tend to love unhealthy food the first time they try it, right? But it can take several tries of new foods before they start to like it. And then, of course, if anybody has any food allergies or things like that, then always talk with your medical provider about what's the best plan for you. Yeah. Yeah.
Is there anything I might have not have asked that you think would be important for the community or the public to be aware about?
Of course, we always say if you have any medical problems, before we do any drastic diet changes, always talk with your provider, medical provider. Use common sense. If food in its most natural form is going to be the best thing for us, right? So if you're used to eating a ton of junk food and you're making some healthier swaps for that, that's great. Rethink what your diet is a little bit. Look into it a little bit. I had a parent with me yesterday saying, we've been eating clean. And I said, well, what does that mean to you? Because a lot of us throw these terms out there that we've heard that we assume are okay. The new diet recommendations say to increase protein. That's great for most people, but for some people, we have to be cautious with that, right? And so again, it goes back to what your personal medical story is, what your history is, and doing all that. The main goal with these changes is to try to improve the health of America. And I always tell patients when we talk about weight, hey, weight is my struggle too. There's good seasons and bad seasons for that with me, but looking at how can we eat food in its most natural form, what are a couple changes we can make today? Usually if we try to do a 180 today on our diet, it might last for a week, just like a New Year's resolution, and then it's going to be gone. So I usually tell families, pick one change that we can do for this month, and then next month we'll add another change in. So maybe this month is we're going to try to do more whole wheat when we do buy pastas and grains. Or maybe it's we're going to try to eat, instead of chicken nuggets, we're going to eat the whole chicken, right? That we get the whole chicken instead of the processed chicken nuggets. But pick one change you're going to focus on for this month, and then add another one in each month. And that tends to be changes that can last. So, yeah.
So, thank you so much.
You're welcome.